Going live. Holy sh! We are live. Welcome to Talking Crit. I am Eric Tenkar, your bartender in the OSR. With me, as always, is my once-a-week work spouse, Bad Mike Battleato, who may suddenly pop out as the weather tears through.
We were under
Area.
severe thunderstorm warning, hail, high winds. I don't know, other things. So we'll see what happens. If you see it go out, I'm either going to the bathroom or I've been knocked off the air. So we'll figure it out pretty quick. We'll figure it out quick.
His Joe the Lawyer impression if he turns off the camera. And,
yeah, Joe's made a whole career out of turn off the camera. Why is it a big deal if I do it? Come on.
Yeah,
that's his whole shtick. That's his entire shtick.
All right, Mr. Sexy. And below us, you know him. Most of you probably recognize him for one simple graphic. If you're in the OSR, you've been seen for years.
His bullet point right there. His bullet point.
Okay. It's Stuart Robertson, best known in some circles for the OSR logo. That is,
one of them. One of them. There's a lot of.
No, you have the one that people go, that's been around for like decades, right? It's like, no, it hasn't been for decades, but it's got that blue, that effing. You can't make a photocopy of this or mimeograph of it, right? That was what it was back then. It's a blue that you can't copy at your school copy machine. Blue that TSR thought they were publishing in to keep us from doing bad things. But Stuart has more stuff going on. Good to have him on. Somebody I've known in the community for probably close to a decade, but haven't gotten a chance to actually speak to him until today. Stuart Robertson.
Well, thank you for having me on. It's nice to be here.
I couldn't believe we hadn't had him on the show before. I was certain we had him on before.
No,
I couldn't believe we hadn't had him on the show before because, our paths have crossed paths all the last decade. From blogs to comments. I feel like I know Stuart just because. When he comments on something, he's usually something pretty intelligent to say. Just today, some WotC shill tried to take him down. I had to back up my buddy because it was the most shilliest shill comment ever.
Well, so it's hard to know if someone's shilling or if they're just like all in true believer. So I
know
it's a much of a difference, really.
but anyway, so it's just wild that we've never had him. I find it hard to believe that we have just getting around to Stuart. But glad you're on the show tonight.
Yeah, there's people I've chatted with online for since before Google Plus, since the blog days, since the forums before that.
Oh yeah,
and it's I feel like I know them very well, but I've never actually met a lot of these folks. I'm in another country from a lot of the gamers I chat with online, so there's some geography challenges there.
Yeah, for those who don't know, Stuart's from Antarctica. He's a biodome underneath the surface there. So
yeah, I'm in Ontario. We're unlike Bad Mike, we're under a UFO warning at the moment. But,
true, very true. Yeah, watch out for those flying missiles because one missed the other day. It went to Lake Ontario, didn't it?
So I actually know that area because we go vacationing up there all the time up at Tobermory, and it's beautiful country up there. And I don't know that all that news is very odd. I can't believe each of those missiles is $400,000. I couldn't believe that because I'm like, well, why wouldn't you use the cannon? Why wouldn't you? I don't know, why wouldn't you do something else? But $400,000 missile. Well, that's done, and it missed.
All right. Well, because
and then they shot another one.
Right. Well,
so $800,000
will be like, that requires you to. I guess if we'll talk 5e for a brief second here. I guess with like the missiles, like, oh, I'll just take 10. I can't screw this up. Oh shit! But with the cannon, you have to have some skill. You have to make a roll, and this is all being recorded on cameras. And I guess how embarrassing is it to be like, I'm shooting at because there's a story about from like the turn of the century that there was some balloon over Canada and it took them like multiple sweeps, like 2 hours to finally take it down with the cannon. So can you just imagine? It's like, oh shit, we missed it.
Well, that's why you do these things, though, right? Because now, I mean, you didn't know this before. So if somebody had tried to attack us with, I don't know, balloons with incendiary devices or something on there. You know that it's not really. It's pretty hard to shoot them down with a jet. So you're maybe going to have to think of a different strategy, to take them down. So it's actually not a bad ramp up to whatever might, come next.
Well, listen, the government needs another. Just like Wizards of the Coast needs ways to lose money, the U.S. government needs other ways to spend money. And since we've already, the pandemic has calmed down to it's no longer a way to spend money. And Ukraine is that's getting less important. So now we need balloons. And
well, it was UFOs at first. They were claiming there's maybe this is from another planet. Maybe there's aliens.
Oh yeah,
get excited. Yeah. And I was like, oh my god, I hope that's not true. I hope the first time aliens come to Earth, we blow them up. I hope that wasn't the case. But now I'm thinking it might have been like drug smugglers or something like that.
It's like, China, you steal all our technology, so the only technology you can create on your own is surveillance balloons. And I do like the first one, though, that we let travel from Alaska through Canada, through the U.S., out the other side before taking it off the coast.
Why do you think these are being shot down really quick? Somebody got hammered for that. So
the first one was like, wait, it went across the country. I look bad. So, you know what? I think that latest balloon is a kid's balloon for my birthday party. They got up into the atmosphere. Take it down.
It's a whole bunch of balloons. They said there were strings hanging down. So if you can think of the movie Up, right? Like above the house, it got away from the house and it was just flying through the air. And we can't stand that. And there's a missile that can take care of balloons.
Well, I mean, I'm sitting there thinking, this is actually this is good because I remember reading in a book, it was something unknown stories of World War II, blah blah. Well, there actually was a mainland death during World War II.
Oh yeah, from Japanese balloons.
They sent incendiary balloons. They pretty much failed at their task because I think a lot of them didn't go off with her, but one was opened by a woman. It landed in her backyard. It blew her up, and so
no way.
She is in history as the only person on American soil besides Hawaii. Well, actually, was Hawaii a state back then? I can't remember. I don't think it was
Hawaii
a state.
Wasn't a state. It's the
only American person on American soil state to die in World War II.
Because that's terrible.
The Aleutian Islands were fought over with the Japanese, so but they wasn't a state. So if it isn't a state, it doesn't quite count.
So I think I want to say she was in. She wasn't in California. I want to say she was in Oregon or Washington.
And it came all the way over the Pacific.
Yeah, all the way over. Yeah, and they launched a ton of them. A lot of them went off, but they didn't really do much damage. But I'm thinking now, because now we have 70 years of technology. You put some incendiary devices now. Look at how bad the fires are in the Pacific Northwest up there. I mean, if you start a few fires, and it's good that we're having to deal with this. I mean, it's silly, but
I think it's. I have no proof. I'm not a member of the Canadian Secret Service, and if I was, I wouldn't tell you. But what I will say is, it appeared over Lake Huron. It didn't come in from British Columbia or Seattle, and it didn't come in from the East Coast. It just it appeared over the Great Lakes, which makes me think maybe it started over the Great Lakes.
Conspiracy theory.
Well, I mean,
all right.
but there's people smuggling drugs over the border all the time. So
Let's put it in a balloon, man. Come on.
Well, I'm sure that's happened for years, right? Like they fly planes and they drop it from planes and they put it on drones and they put it in balloons.
Well, yeah, you have drones. Yeah, why not?
Yeah, so I don't know. I think when all is said and done, I wouldn't be surprised if our Lake Huron UFO is something different than the East Coast spy balloon.
Well, they've already kind of said, well, the first balloon was the size of 3 school buses. The latest balloon was the size of a Volkswagen Beetle. Oh, it was spherical. How big?
Perspective. You got to get perspective.
Not big-ish.
Well, I think the reason they said that, though, Eric, was because when people first saw a balloon, they started laughing because they're thinking this balloon's flying and we're trying to shoot down with a jet. No. This is as big as 3 school buses. This is a giant effing balloon. It's not a little. What are we trying to shoot down?
Maybe they should have said
balloon?
Blimp. Because if you say blimp, people are like,
blimp.
it's big. Yeah.
Well, so your Kickstarter now, your Kickstarter has a lot to do with balloons, I understand. So that's why we segued into this. No, I'm just kidding.
No, there's no balloons in the Kickstarter, but there's other things that
you're missing the
fans
market,
of
man. It's the current market.
It's like a market. I know.
Well, maybe that could be a stretch goal. We could add, the balloon. We do have a stretch goal that if we do make enough, we're going to add a second and third level. And I'll say this right now.
All right.
If we get there, I will add a balloon.
Do it. There you go.
We'll add a balloon.
Give the people what they want. Yes.
For the existing content. So about 11 years ago, there was I think it might have been the first one-page dungeon contest, and I put an entry in, and that was the Ancient Academy, and I've since turned it into a little booklet, but it's one page of D&D adventure. And the idea with the Kickstarter is to take that super condensed, each room has maybe 6 or 8 word descriptions, and expand that to the length people are used to seeing in an adventure module or a zine or something like that, and giving more of that background information that I could only hint at in the original mini zine. So in the original zine, there'd be something like, there's a room, it looks like a theater, there's bloodstained curtains, there's a frog mask. And I was hoping people would take that and on their own do something with those frog themes. And in the Advanced Ancient Academy, which is the Kickstarter that we're doing, that all those themes are expanded on. So the NPCs are a little bit more fleshed out, why people are in certain places, what are the factions doing, the magic items, instead of being like, there's a magic ring. It has a little bit more detail to it. And when I originally ran the game for my group of friends, I had much more comprehensive notes than what I distilled down for that one-page dungeon contest. And so this is taking all that material and putting it back in. And I'm pretty excited about it. I was planning on releasing this year anyway, and then I saw Zine Quest was coming up, and I like zines, and I thought this is a great thing to make this part of. So pretty excited about it.
Very cool.
Well, I'm just reading. I was not familiar with it. I just backed it while we're just talking.
Thank you very much.
Because there's no reason not to back it. It's $8 American.
Yes, you get that great exchange rate. I'm in Canada, so
yeah.
The American dollar is much stronger than the Canadian dollar. So
it's $8. I mean, you can't beat it. Now, I did notice there's no physical offering for it. It's PDF only, correct?
So I had planned originally to make the Kickstarter include a print-on-demand option. So one of the challenges, great thing about being in Canada for you guys is the strong American dollar, and you get it at a better price. One of the downsides is our postal service is so expensive. So what I wanted to do was use Drive-Thru RPG, and people would be able to order the physical book and have it printed, closer to home over in Europe or in the US, and then have domestic shipping, so they don't have to have it shipped from me in Canada. That was all set up and ready to go. Kickstarter had some quibbles about the way that was being presented with backing levels and things like that. So I said, you know what? Zine Quest starts in 2 days. I can't mess around. I'll just take that out. It's just a straight PDF. But what I'm going to do is when backers get their PDF, it will be on Drive-Thru RPG, and it will be set up and ready to go as a print-on-demand product.
Great.
So, so you'll have to pay to print it and ship it from Drive-Thru RPG to wherever you are. But that's going to be a better price. So it'll be, did you say it was like $8 American?
It's $8 American.
Yeah, it'll probably be something similar to that to get a print copy. So $8 for the game, then you pay at cost printing and shipping. And I'm only making profit on the PDF.
Well, you've already funded, so that's good. You're almost at 200%, and you still got 2 weeks to go. So this looks like it's going to be quite successful. I'm hoping.
I hope so too. Yeah. My first time doing a Kickstarter like this, and it's fun to see all the other creators making their zines, and it's been really neat to learn from all the other people in our little section of the hobby, and cool to see how they're putting this all together.
And who doesn't love an old school dungeon crawl? I mean, I just can't resist it. I mean, I'm sorry.
Over the years, I've been told a lot of people have used this, the original one, the little mini one, as the first dungeon they introduce people to D&D with, and so I'm hoping that more fleshed out version will be even better for that.
Well, the one-page dungeons were great for that. Do they still do that? Because that was one of the coolest things every year. Was, I guess that's what's one thing we lose hearing about, since I don't really do a lot of blog stuff anymore. But that used to be every year. All the blogs would get nuts and put all that stuff in, all the work in, and there was some really, really good one-page dungeons I still have in my little box of really quick and dirty things to run. You just grab it and you can run it. I have a lot of the one-page dungeon items there. I may have this in there. I don't know. I'd have to look.
I think one of the things I really liked about the one-page dungeon contests and the formats and the mini zines and everything like that, I feel like many professionally done RPGs, there's a little bit of padding that page count, right? Like they're expanding that text and they're filling up those pages so they can take that 50 pages of material and maybe give you 150 pages of material, put it in a nice hardback, charge that much more money. And the one-page dungeon contest was like going the opposite way. It was like, how can we compress as much gaming material into the smallest amount of space as possible? Now, I've gotten a little bit older and I wear glasses now. And that tiny little font, it's really, really small. And that was a lot more fun, a decade ago when my eyes were better. So now I'm hearing from a lot of people, please don't make that 8-point font. I can't do that. Yeah. So
I'm with it, yeah.
Please give me, I don't care if the page number is a bit higher, please give me something that's a bit easier to read at the table. I don't want a magnifying glass.
Well, that makes a lot of sense.
Some people don't know that. I was going to say Stonehill Dungeon started out as a one-page dungeon contest thing.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, Michael Curtis got really interested in it, and he started making levels and posting it on his website.
He was one of the first, and that was a big inspiration to, I think, everyone who was doing one page. I think, if I'm remembering correctly, he might have even been the first person to put that format out there for a one page, like here's the little map in a corner and here's the the room description. So yeah, he was really influential for all the people doing one page dungeons.
Well, trying to be minimalist in your RPG creative work is not easy. No, I did the Swords of Wizardry Light rules, and trying to bring Swords of Wizardry down to 4 pages and still be an RPG was not easy. To try to explain leveling and again, 4 pages including the OGL. So a lot of that was great layout by Zach Laser, but a lot of that was also what can I get away with not explaining? What can I do? I'll remove experience points because nobody needs to know about that. That's fine. I'll remove any kind of equipment list. They'll just get the equipment that they need. It's a different way of viewing it than writing, like I said, an adventure for retail where you have to cover all the bases for somebody. Being minimalist is a whole different approach to the question. And some people are like, oh, it's got to be easy to be minimalist.
Oh my gosh, no. So if you're really, really getting down to that level of minimalism, you're paying attention to, I used 5 words in that description, but it breaks to the next line. So I need to shorten that to 4 words. So I have to choose exactly the right words. So when I did Weird West, which was another one of my mini zines, this was a complete, well, as much as you can for this size, a complete game. And this took a long time to bring everything smaller and smaller and smaller. And one of the fun things that I'm still really happy about this is it's actually Dungeons and Dragons. I started with the rules for D&D, and then I was like, okay, so you get bonuses for your attributes, and then those are applied in other places. And so I looked at all the math, and I was like, okay, how can we streamline all of that? How can we, like boil all that math in so that there's less, that we have to do with everything. So it's actually compatible with all the other old school OSR type games, but it's super, super, super streamlined. And again, a lot of people said that they really enjoyed it. I'm still very proud of it, but again, getting a little bit older, that format of super condensed and tiny is not as appealing as it used to be. And now I still like short, but zine size I think is probably a bit better.
You want to hit that sweet spot. So
Yes.
you have a question from Mark Clover from Creative Mountain Games, somebody who's been doing publishing within our little corner of the universe for years. Question for Stuart: what's the current state for using your original OSR logo? Still attribution 3.0? All right. Creative Commons, by the way, is a little Greek to me. I'm still trying to figure out the 4.0 for the fucking new SRD 5.1. But in any case, unported CC BY 3.0. Does it still have the proposed hate speech restrictions? Anything new on it?
All right, so I figured someone would eventually ask about this. So here's the story of what happened that year. I left my old job, and I was doing an accelerated college program that year, and I was disconnected from social media. So I was unaware of, shall we say, some of the changes in the sort of social media landscape and what some people might call the culture war. And I wasn't quite informed about where all of that was at. So I really stepped in it that fall when another artist said, Stuart, you really should say something about all of this. And I was like, oh, yeah, that would be a nice thing to do. Why don't I do a nice thing and say, hey, you have to be nice. You can't be a horrible person. Like who would argue with something like that? And then I'll get back to my studies, and this won't be a thing. So I think I was a little naive and didn't appreciate where things were in the world, all the nuance of that. So where that stands right now is there's a big mess. I made a mess of it, I think. I don't think I would go down that same path again. So I haven't really looked at where that stands, but I would say, if anyone wants to do something with that, I'm pretty agreeable to people doing something with that. I've also got that's one of the logos that I've done. I've also done, there's a sort of Conan sword OSR logo that you'll see on Greg Gillespie's work. Yeah, I did that one. There's a KISS one, looks like the KISS logo. And there's some other awesome OSR logos as well. Matt Jackson has a really nice one that's got the sort of hex for like hex crawls on that I think looks really nice. So if someone's really keen to use that, I'm pretty agreeable to that. I'm less agreeable if it's going to be and it's not the hate speech thing that sort of annoys me at the moment. It's if someone's just going to use it to push the politics, because that is a drag, and there's a little bit too much of that, maybe even from some big game companies that we'll talk about a little bit later this evening. So a little bit too much of that.
I don't know. Stuart's throwing something out there. I have no clue what he's talking about. We'll get to that later. Not a clue. But
if you're keen to do something with that, give me a shout online. I'm pretty easy to find, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to be agreeable to us doing something, and you can use it. I've said yes to more people than I've ever said no to. I did say no at one point where there was a group that were using it to sort of like fight against the other side of the OSR. They were sort of
we're gonna own these guys.
Yeah, they were the very left. So it was actually the very, very left wing folks that I actually said no to at one point, where I was like, can you not make my work the center of that campaign? Like, just do something else. And so I was kind of soured to the whole thing for a couple of years, because again, I really stepped in it, and I think that was that was my mistake. I think I got a little bit older, learned from that, educated myself a little bit more, and I've come back to saying it is a nice logo. I should dust that off, and we should use that again. So I don't know the status of the Creative Commons, because there was a lot of sort of acrimony around that at the time. But if you want to use it, just give me a shout and we'll figure something out.
Very cool. So Mark followed up with, I think your comments at the time were coming from a good place. I just didn't know how it all fell out. Daddy Moore makes some really nice patches from OSR logos, by the way.
Yes, he does. He sent me some. I haven't messaged him yet. I just got my little package from him the other day, and they look awesome. So he does excellent work with that.
I've got some old ones, and I don't know if Stuart sent these to me or somebody else years ago, and I was cleaning out.
It would be Thaddeus.
Okay, Thaddeus. I cleaned out some North Texas stuff, and it was in a box, and I guess he'd sent them to me to give away people in North Texas. So I've got a little. If you see me at the con, I'll try to remember to pick them up. I've got probably they're about this big, probably about half a dozen of them. So yeah, I just had them stuck in a box for years. So, but yeah, it's a great logo. It really is.
Yeah, I think when I was a kid. This is the other fun thing about that. So my initials are SR for Stuart Robertson, right? So when I was like in junior high, so like I should have a cool logo based on my initials. And so when the OSR started, I thought, that's pretty funny. I should do something with that, because it was always sort of like SR is me and OSR is any number of other things. So I always thought that was a bit amusing. But yeah, people really seem to enjoy that logo. And I've chilled out a little bit about not wanting people to use it now. So I hope I'm more laid back than I was then.
No, that's good. Well, that's great. That's great that you can look back and kind of change your mind on that, because I think that's a problem with our society, is people come so calcified, this is what I've always begun. This is what I've always believed. So I just can't change my mind, because everybody will just think I'm changing my mind. Who cares? Change your mind. Everybody changes their mind. Everybody changes, what they believe. And
that is old Stuart Robertson. Every time I saw it, I would secretly think that it's me.
It's part of maturing. Am I the same person I was when I started blogging? No. Yeah, I certainly approach things differently now than I did then. Do I tend to piss off both political extremes on a regular basis these days? Yeah, back then I think I pissed off the left more than the right, because I don't know if the right was as active back then.
Mm-hmm.
But now I piss off both sides most frequently. It boils down to Tenkar does not use his influence in a proper manner, which means I don't take political stands and use my influence for it. Because, honest to God, my influence should be used about gaming. Whether we're talking OSR gaming or third-party publishing or 5e or any of the other games that get under the radar, like, I don't know, Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, Rolemaster, all this stuff is out there. And that's where my influence should be used, because that's what I'm concerned about. I couldn't care two shits about how people game or how they voted. And Mike will tell you, as a convention person who runs conventions, he's had people say, "How do I find out how my GM voted in the last presidential election?"
Yep, I had people ask that, and I the most incredulous look as I'm looking at their email you can ever imagine, because Doug Ray, the late Doug Ray, one of his big things was he was no politics. He was absolutely no politics. And he didn't care. He just wanted you to game. And it would have frustrated him and infuriated him to no end when people would ask really goofball questions like that. Like, is there a way that I think the exact thing was, is there a way the DMs can wear a tag that shows how they vote? He's like, no. We're not doing that. We're not. This is not why we're having the convention.
Well, down. Okay, so down south, right? We have a few more political parties up here than you do, but you basically have two parties, kind of maybe a third, but not really, right?
We have two, and then we have the Libertarians, who cannot get the 2% required.
And you've got the Green Party, so maybe you do have more. Maybe you do have more, but you effectively have two, right?
Two.
And if you were to say, you're a terrible person if you vote for one of those two parties. It was like, well, you don't have a democracy anymore then. You've got a one-party system,
Right.
and that's terrible, right? So I don't know. I
So-
think that's there's something really terrible about that when we get to
So
the
if you
point.
vote, yeah, if you vote one way, one side hates you. If you vote the other way, the other side hates you. And it was so funny because Doug was absolutely apolitical. I don't think he voted since like 1984. He just didn't. He voted. He might have voted in local elections. He never voted for a national election. Just his whole thing was he didn't matter. Didn't matter. He got in more trouble for that than for voting for liberals or Republicans, because they were like, "Well, how dare you not vote?" I don't. It's my choice not to vote. Look, I don't want to vote because I don't like either side. Well, then you're just an awful, horrible person. He got called
I've heard
an awful,
that too.
person because we wouldn't vote. Now, I mean, I've thrown my vote. I throw my vote away on the Green Party a few times when I get upset by both sides. I've done that more than a few times where I'm just like, you know what, I'm just going to waste my vote and throw it at the Green Party because screw these guys. And that's I think that's a perfectly logical response. I think you're allowed to do that. You're allowed to do that. And you're allowed to not vote. And some people get thrown under the bus for voting for the Green Party, Stuart. I mean, even though because the Green Party here is virtually means you're throwing your vote away, and they're never going to win anything. So
my town is pretty green, and we actually have elected a Green Party representative.
Wow,
and,
that's good.
But now the Green Party representative is talking about like wanting to be the head of one of the other parties, and you're just like, ugh. And then it's just the whole
they
thing.
Just use that as a stepping stone to get into politics. Now they're in politics.
So
hey, I want to throw with one of the big guys here. Come on, I need to do something here.
But certainly any of those sort of like political purity tests where I only want to explore dungeons with people who vote the same way that I do is, I don't know. That's way too much.
It happens all the time, and I know similar stories from Alex Caber, who runs Gamehole, and Luke Gygax, who runs GaryCon. You get asked the craziest stuff about, hey, how can I be sure or do you know if such and such is who they voted? Because I want to play in their game, but I don't want to play for them. They voted for fill in the blank, and that's the great thing about gaming, and one of the greatest things about gaming is what happened last month when WotC decided they were going to come in and be the biggest heel of all time, and everybody, it just was the most amazing thing. Everybody in gaming, regardless of political persuasion, I mean, there's guys that I don't get along with in the gaming world, and I was posting on their blogs giving thumbs up because they would say something that just made perfect sense, like, look, we can't have WotC do this, and it just brought everybody together. And that's what I love, I think, about the gaming community as a whole, is when it comes down to it, it's just about rolling dice at the table, right?
Absolutely. I loved seeing that, and unfortunately a few weeks went by, and now it sort of feels like it's everyone's going back to their corners.
It's like you shook up the salad dressing, and now it's all separating again. Like, what the hell
it's all separating. There's the oil, there's the vinegar.
I mean, like Mike said, like when this OGL shit hit the fan, and by the way, monetized or not, you can use whatever language you want, except for some British slang that you cannot use.
Okay.
It sounds like a very bad American word, which it is in American, and that will just demonetize me. Otherwise, you can throw out the F-bomb all you want. But I still remember this thing went down, and I was like, holy shit. And then somebody reached out to me, and maybe they figured that I didn't get to see what was behind people's walled gardens. By the way, if you're in a walled garden, nothing in your walled garden is secret, okay? And everybody knows somebody who's going to tell me about your walled garden if it involves me. And I was like, person known in the gaming community, I was like, you're reaching out to me for my assistance because you've always followed the blog and my influence. And I go, I could either react in the go fuck yourself mode, which, I thought of briefly because it's human nature. And then I was like, you know what? The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Right now, we have a much bigger issue in the gaming community than name calling and people falling into, I don't know, like you said before, political purity tests. All right, which I fail all the time, so it doesn't matter which side's giving me the test. Apparently, I'm like that gray mongrelization of politics in the middle. But I was like, yeah, you know what? This is the time to put that shit to the side. And I'm hoping, I really hope that as an end result, it's not going to be all and it's not going to be everyone, but maybe some of this bullshit that we have carried as a community, not just in the OSR, in gaming beyond that, where we've put up our little, oh, well, if you cross it, well, I don't want certain customers playing my games. You've seen that from publishers, right? My game is not for X voters. Maybe we can put that shit to the side and realize that when it comes to gaming, we should be looking at what brings us together, our common thoughts, our common goals, which is to have a better game, right? To have a good time at the table. I mean, I don't like quiz people when they come to my table and go, so what's your religion? How do you vote? And what are your views on random question of the day? Let's try abortion today. What's your view?
The other one that we got, I forgot. There's another one we got at the con. You could probably guess this one, Eric. We had people that wanted to know, how can I tell if my DM has had the shot or not? Remember the COVID shot? That was a big one too. Yeah. I don't want to. Now I will say in this case, it was almost always, I don't want to DM with him if they haven't had the shot yet, or gave them that shot yet. We did have a few that, if they've had the shot, I don't want to game with them. And so we said, we're absolutely not going to, first of all, I think that's covered by HIPAA, but we're not absolutely not going to release it. Have people have to say that information, just if you don't want to play, don't play. If you want to play. We're not going to go question everybody and say, okay, now we have a test here. Have you had the shot? Who did you vote for? What's your favorite pizza? New York style, Chicago style, or do you like come on, man.
What is the speed of an unladen swallow?
Growing up in Canada, we would often think America was a more extreme version of whatever we were doing, right? Your politics were more extreme, your entertainment was more extreme. Everything was bigger and more extreme. But the last couple of years, we are more extreme when it comes to some of these issues that you are grappling with down there. So I don't know if you saw about the
shark, man.
The trucker protest. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was crazy.
That was
man.
intense.
That was nuts.
So if you think there was issues with who's got the jab and who doesn't, at the convention, wow, we had some.
So your purity test there would be, okay, did you support the truckers or not? Because I'm not going to game with you if you are black.
Absolutely.
See, that's ridiculous. That's I mean, one example I have is the blogger, streamer, whatever, cosplayer Jenny D. I knew a little bit about her, but not a lot because I don't really care, But I heard people say over and over, "Oh, she's a piece of shit. I mean, she's so woke and she this that." So I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything about her. Never saw her. I'd see a picture every once in a while. And then when all this happened, she made some great videos, and she was firmly in the camp of WotC doesn't need to do this, and I'd heard for years she was a WotC shill. Oh, she's a shill for WotC. Whatever they do, whatever. I didn't think she was a shill for WotC. I watched the stuff she did. So I'm sitting here now. I subscribed to her page. I mean, and I'm just like, following her stuff. And I'm like, there's nothing objectionable, at least to me here. I mean, okay, she's not my cup of tea. I mean, I'm not really into cosplay. I have no clue what her political opinions are. I mean, maybe they're just awful and I don't know. But that was one of those cases where I looked at somebody just because they were taking up for gamers and saying, look, this is what the OGL, stood for is very important. And, if she was a WotC show before, she's sure not now, because I don't know if you saw her last video, Eric, where she did you saw it because she posted the one where she did the interview with Kyle. And she eviscerated him in this because she would do a question and he would answer, and then she'd go off this. Then she would do a thing and go, "Okay, well, he said this. This is what I thought," and I thought she did a great job. I like I said, I don't know much about her, but for what I've seen so far, I mean, as long as she is on our side, which is to me is all gamers, then I'm fine.
She seems smart and creative and industrious. I mean, she's got a very successful YouTube channel, and hats off to anyone who can do all of those things. So good for her.
She's the one that led the boycott D&D Beyond movement, which
she did a great. Yeah, she probably.
They will admit that actually had an influence. It had an influence. If you could not, cancel your D&D Beyond account because the servers couldn't handle it, I think that they were going, this might be an issue. You think? Right?
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, tomorrow is going to be Hasbro's was it quarterly meeting of the
that should be
of their
oh
earnings.
to be a fly on the wall. That would be so cool. By the way, Gun is here saying Jenna D is a terrible person. Well, see, there you go. I don't know anything. All I know is what I've seen, and for what I've seen, I don't have a problem.
Listen,
So
I saw okay. Now I hats off to her for being smart, creative, industrious, all of those things. That doesn't mean that like I don't subscribe to watch people sing songs about D&D. That is not like I find it intensely uncomfortable to watch things like that. But there's other people who love that, and I think that's awesome. You know, people can like things I don't like.
Her Monster Mash video was actually entertaining the first time I saw it, and then by the time I tried to watch it a second time, I was like, I'm gonna have to slit my wrist because it's getting into my head, and I don't know if I wanted to. It really has to drain out. But Mr. Gunn, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. All right, listen, I'll take it to the extreme for those that know me. At this point, if Zach Smith came up to me and said, hey, you want to do a video against Wizards of the Coast? I'd be like, Zach, I'm all in. Let's shake hands and do this. All right? And
let's hope that doesn't happen.
And you know my feelings about Zach Smith. All right? If anybody goes back to the Duel Plus days, I was that fucking cop. Greg Christopher was the Pope of the OSR.
You know. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
but
I was
weird.
Yeah. I was that fucking cop, which I've been called most of my career. So I mean, it's not a big deal. But I mean, honestly, if you're going to take a stand against the corporate overlord, which Wizards of the Coast tried to do their best impression of TSR in the 90s. Oh, we're gonna shut down the internet. When Wizards of the Coast wants to do something like that, yes, I'll find. You know, at World War II, we kind of knew the Russians were going to be our enemies by the time the end of the war came around, but they were our allies, and we would still send them trucks, send them planes, give them whatever they need because we need them. Well, you know what? We needed everybody. It was all hands on deck, and I'm glad it had resolved.
Well, I hope some of those good feelings, last. I know there's a few people on my feed that at one time or another I've either silenced or blocked because I just couldn't stand their ranting anymore. And I've kept them. They're back on, and I've kept them on, and so far so good. So we'll see how long it lasts. Now it's the same as anything else. As long as there's not a common enemy, things fall apart, right? I mean, once you stop fighting the common enemy, then everybody kind of goes in their own little back to their tribes. But when you're fighting Godzilla, you're all there because everybody has to. But once Godzilla is dead or leaves, everybody goes off to their.
I wish I could remember. I wish I could remember the exact saying, but it's something like the something of small differences, and when people are like one person likes D&D, the other person says it's stupid. Oh, that's fine. I don't care. But if two people like D&D almost exactly, but I like one edition and I like another, they're the worst enemies, even though they're so much closer together than the person who hates it.
Only if it's 4E. See, 4E is the D&D that's the non-D&D. It's like, we're going to make a D&D that doesn't really exist as D&D except the name only.
See, I think they shouldn't have named it D&D. I think that they should have not called it. I think they should all be Dungeons and Dragons : something else. Instead of claiming that 3rd and 4th and 5th and 6th are all the same game but a different edition, call them what they are. Like, so 4th edition could have been called Dungeons and Dragons Tactics, and people would be playing it today.
I always said make it look. Their mini department at the time was kicking ass. Those WotC minutes time were great. How about Dungeons and Dragons Miniature Wars? I would have played it because their miniatures were great. They were on point.
If they called these different things, right? If it was like Dungeons and Dragons Tales, Dungeons and Dragons Tactics, Dungeons and Dragons, Questbringer, whatever, right? People would play all of them side by side, and there would be no edition warring, and everyone would be like, yeah, I like all these different games. And I don't know why they decided that these different games would they'd pretend that they were all the same game and make everyone argue constantly.
Because
It doesn't make sense.
The IP is the name recognition, right?
But you could still have that IP. You could call it Dungeons and Dragons. Like if you get potato chips, right? They don't say salt and vinegar are now the potato chip. This is potato chip.
Well, yeah, but because they don't want to fight against their own prior edition. They want to. It's like, oh, now we got to support 2 games. If
oh no, I have to sell twice as much product. Oh no.
Well, no, I have to produce twice, not sell, produce. One thing that we've learned from Wizards of the Coast, especially in the last 2 years, is that their ability to produce anything of value is really not very good.
So I think we were talking about purity tests, and I have a friend, and I'm not going to say who it is, but it's a friend that maybe some of you have as well. And he interviewed for a job at Wizards of the Coast, and they said during the interview, they said, it seems that a couple of years ago you said something bad about us online, and so now he was like, yeah, sorry about that. Didn't get the job, right? And the what I see is like all these veteran gamers, like there's so many people that if I was Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast, I'd be like, okay, you know what? Lots of people have said grumpy things. There's been edition wars, and people have said I hate 4E and I hate this and I don't like that. I would have some sort of amnesty on all of that, and I would say, who's doing amazing stuff, right? Gavin Norman with Old School Essentials. Why don't you come on in and we'll give you Dungeons and Dragons and you can do something awesome with it? Or Greg Gillespie, why don't you come on in? We'll give you, the reins. You show us what you would do with this. And then you'd get these successful, veteran game designers and developers instead of always,
Yeah, but it'll never happen, Stuart. Because they tried it. So they did an example of that. The example that was when Mike Mearls invited Pundit and Zach Smith in to comment because he thought he was going to be cool. And I'm going to get two hip guys that are hip there. And he got him to come in, and he got just absolutely crucified for that. So,
but I don't think he should have. I think
I don't think so either.
I think that they should have stuck to their guns, and they should not have tried to narrowly focus on one demographic of gamer. Right? They should have said, you know what? It wasn't just Zach and Pundit. It was actually, and I don't think there's anything wrong with having them be part of that, right? I think they were both very talented people. I think they fought with a lot of people online and got people's backs up, but you know what? They did good game design, right? They brought in other people, and this is where I'm thinking, I think they were right where they did that. What was it called? The Prismatic Citadel or something like that. They brought in a whole bunch of different people and they did a product.
Yeah,
and they brought
it lost money like
so that was bad because they didn't.
Terrible.
They maybe didn't pick the right
they hired
people.
a bunch of people that really had never written before, but they checked diversity boxes.
And so if they hire people,
Radiant Citadel.
If they hire people who have a proven track record on other things. I mean, this isn't going to happen. I don't have no belief this is going to happen.
But Stuart's fantasy world. Okay, let's go.
Yeah, this is what I would have liked to see.
I'm in. I'm in.
Yeah, and so build bridges with these other gamers and designers instead of, we don't want you in the hobby and we want to get rid. And here's another thing. Rather than go on all these, so we're segueing into one of my pet peeves here. Rather than go on all those podcasts and say, you know what, one day, maybe we'll hire people who don't look like this sort of thing, right? Just hire people then. If you're the head of D&D, right? Why don't you go, like, if he thinks the guys on, is it called Three Hobbits in a Trench Coat or something like that?
Three Black Hobbits.
Three Black Hobbits, yeah.
Why doesn't he hire them? Why doesn't he say, okay, you know what? I want to see, from different corners of the hobby, people from different backgrounds doing adventures. I think, again, with TSR, you had those nice, small, more like a zine size adventures instead of these thick hardbacks, right?
Yep.
Get a lot of these going, and then say,
because it's more the same shit, Stuart. It's same as any company that pledges we're for diversity, and then it's just absolute lip service. I mean, for those of you, if you know anybody that is actually a POC or LGBTQ that plays, and I know some, not a lot, because I'm a white dude that's hanging there, but they get infuriated by that when it's just lip service and it's not real change.
Well,
when WotC said. I mean, go ahead, Stuart. Yeah,
they've let go all of their Brazil folks,
Yep.
Right? Why don't you get the Brazil folks to write a cool adventure? And I think people would think that's cool because it's bringing in, all their different ideas about the game. Like when back in the 80s, right? Some of the coolest books were from TSR UK, right? The Fiend Folio, Sinister Secret of Saltmarsh. There was some of the best stuff was from
UK.
other ideas from somewhere
TSR
else,
UK,
right? So why don't they say, okay, this is the book from our Japan office. This is the book from our German team. This is the book from Brazil. I think that would be cool
because it's not the narrative that they want.
I know.
They have the problem is that they have a narrative that they've already pre-plotted out, okay, and it's been plotted out now for God knows how many years, and this is the way things are supposed to go. Now, part of this plotting out was not losing the OGL. They thought that they were going to. Somebody on some level was like, all right, I have an idea for the OGL. Okay. We revoke it. Well, we can't do that. If we could have revoked it, we would have revoked it with 4E. Why would we have a game system license if we could revoke it? No. I'm a lawyer, and I'm a rules lawyer, and I figured out a way we can do this. And then we revoke it, and then we put a new one, and we tell people we're doing it to protect them.
Oh my gosh.
Because we're greedy, all right? Because that's we never could say we're greedy. We're doing it to protect them from what? NFT scams and bad elements. We've had bad elements since the D20 license. But we just did it to wear the D20 license. So we can just say, yeah, they're using an open license, but our insignia isn't on it. No. We have an ampersand. And that ampersand means that we are now putting our stamp of approval on everything. So now we need an OGL. That means that these things are family safe.
Like the Comic Code Authority. That's what the whole thing reminded me of.
That's what it's about. So but it's not only that. And then the guy goes, hey, we can gain free rights to everything by doing this. You're kidding me. No. We'll include that. It's already in our D&D a DM's Guild contract. We'll base it on the DM's Guild contract. People are already taking. Yeah, but they're taking it because we're selling their shit. But we're taking it and taking half the money. This way we won't take half the money, but we won't sell their shit, but we'll own all their shit if we want it. Well, that's so stupid. It might actually work. Let's and by the way, the whole thing with Kyle going, well, we knew 1.1 was bad, so we were already working on 1.2 to make sure that 1.1 wouldn't go out. Then why were you showing it to people? It was a beta. No, it was a playtest. It was a draft. But the draft was a legitimate contract until they signed it, in which case it's fully, I'd say draft, but it's a real contract. So then why didn't you come out with the 1.2? Because we had a 2.0 we had to put out before then. I mean, I swear to God, it's like a clown car. It's like, all right, so if you go into show stupidity, how do you do it? Well, we go from 1.1 to 2.0 back to 1.2 because, and Kyle says, I don't know who wrote the 1.1. I don't know.
That's not true.
I don't know who wrote the response that said we were all winners. You won, but we won too. I don't know who wrote that. I don't. I happen to be the executive producer, but I have no. Who wrote this? Somebody step forward, please. I'm not mad. Somebody tell me who wrote this.
Any of their content management are going to show who published something. It's not a notice board in the office that someone can come and put a sticky note up on after hours and who did this and
who posted this on the staff refrigerator.
Yeah.
Why? Yeah. And why were there 3 different versions? And why couldn't you put the versions out in the right order? I don't know. I mean, the attempts were so sloppy. The only way to make this go away was to give everything in Creative Commons, and even they fucked that up. Right? The reason why they can't do a 3.5 Creative Commons is because they have to go through the 3.5 SRD and go, all right, listen, we've already given up Strad and the Forgotten Realms. Oh my God. What else is in 3.5 that we haven't already given away under the Creative Commons for 5.1. Go through it, pull all that shit out, and then maybe. So I mean,
well, so some of the Stuarts did earlier in this a while back before Eric went on that kick-ass rant of his. But I and this is something to think about too. So sort of mentioned, when's the last time they did anything that gamers wanted or for gamers? And I would say the last time they did that was 2013, because 2013, if you remember, they were in between editions. That fourth edition was kind of a flop. They were working on fifth edition. That was kind of the year when nothing much got done. What did they publish that year? They published the premium editions. They published the Slavers hardcover, gold cover, a really beautiful book. They published the Domains of Dread that had S1 through 4 in it, or whatever, something Dread. It was a reprint of that, beautiful reprint. They did the hardcover reprints of the original D&D, the Player's Handbook, Dungeon Master's Guide, Monster Manual, and Unearthed Arcana. That was nobody had a problem with that. That was probably the most positive thing they did in the community, because it was a way of saying, look, we still like you old guys, and here's something for you, because we're not really doing anything this year anyway. We're going to publish these and make some really premium editions of some of our old stuff. And I thought that was the last time they really did something that people just seemed to everybody agree with. This is really cool, and this isn't dissing the old people. This is saying we want you to be part of this 5e. And there was a lot of bridge built. There was a lot of fence mending.
I think at the beginning of 5e, I think early 5e and late 5e, they definitely have different.
Oh yeah, definitely. Oh, definitely.
And different target audiences. So I actually ran a weekly all ages game of 5e for kids and parents at our local game store for 3 years. And we had between a dozen and 24 people per session, and 75 people over the course of the entire campaign. And that was with all the early 5e material. And so people, there's things I like about 5e. There's definitely things I don't like. It really takes away a lot of the resource management, and it pads the edges. I think it works really nicely when you're using a game with brand new players, especially kids who do erratic, non-optimal things. The lethality of the characters is certainly a lot higher. But as it went along, and I think this is probably true of, certainly at least the third edition. I don't know about first and second as much, because I don't feel this happened quite to the same degree. But when you add in like Tasha's Cauldron of everything, even my son, who I do our new podcast with, he was like, it's too much for me. I can't deal with the power creep and the number of things to track and everything else. And so I think that's where they started losing people. I think it just, they hyper focused on one sort of aspect, one sort of like demographic and aspect of the game. And I feel like this is why this idea that there's only one D&D all the time, like even calling it one D&D, is such a terrible strategy. I think there should be many D&Ds, and then you can pick the one that works for you. And
it's all about control, and it's all about marketing. Now, remember when 5e released, what did it not release with? It did not release with an open game license.
Open game license. Yeah.
It didn't come for 15 months. Instead, they gave us the basic rules, because the in-house view was these cheap fucks want a free version of the game. All right, so we're gonna give them the basic rules, and they can do with it as they want. It's the only PDF version of the rules we're gonna give, and they can take this and they can wipe their ass with it. They can do whatever they want. They can just shut up, and we don't have to hear about this OGL shit. And then people kept on talking. It's like, hey, where's the OGL? We want an OGL. We want third-party creators in the mix. And then after 15 months of, I'm sure, a lot of talk back and forth between the bean counters and the suits and the game designers, they finally came out and said, here you go. Here's your OGL. And people were happy. I think that the change in 5.1 got solidified when they went about 2 years ago. Orcs are no longer evil. There are no evil races. Everybody can be everything, and there's no. What about demons and devils? They're misunderstood. All right, you can have some good ones. There's no evil in the world. It's just, and that's where I believe that the whole switch, the routine came. Now, back to the OGL for a second. Quote from Kyle himself: "The design team was left out of the loop on the OGL. They knew nothing about it. They knew nothing about what the new requirements were, what it was going to do. So that meant that when people that Mike and I knew that were asking questions of the design staff, what's going on with the OGL, they were getting answers like, 'Oh, it's all hunky dory. Don't worry about it,' because they were left out of the loop. But why were they left out of the loop? Because the last time, my opinion, at the beginning of 5e, the design team was the ones that were fighting hard for an open game license. And Kyle, being a smart enough individual that has to manage people, you find out if you're in those positions, you go, so last time we did this, what happened? Oh, there's a big brouhaha over in what the hell's the OGL again? We do what? We give away our fucking. Are you serious? We do this? And the design team, let them worry about the rules. They don't need to know about this. It's just the business side.
Mm-hmm.
The business side will make that decision. Leave them out of it. And I think that is why this thing went to shit, because business and game design has to go hand in hand in this industry. Because if it isn't, you're not going to understand your customers. The bean counters don't understand the customers, that's for sure. But the designers do, because whatever designers are left, it's Wizards of the Coast. There aren't too many people that are game designers as we would consider them game designers. There are, Kyle himself said it. Well, we hire based upon where somebody falls on a chart, and then we hire the most talented, the most qualified individual. Well, then I don't have high hopes if your requirements aren't getting the most qualified individual to run a new game system. It makes me nervous. But at the same time, it's the same company where they're saying like, "Oh, well, I can't wait for the last white guy to leave and close the door." Coming from the white guy, coming from 17 out of 20 vice presidents and above at Wizards of the Coast being white males, practice what you preach in the position where it actually makes a difference. Because you've already shown us that the design level doesn't make a difference. They don't make the decisions.
I think, if that's what they want to do, why don't they get Mike Pondsmith on the phone and say, we want to give you D&D. You show us how to do it, right? And I would trust that things would be on a better track. I think when it's all this performative stuff that it's not, I don't know, it's not I don't see it helping anyone. And I don't think the whole evil orcs thing. So put out an adventure, and it's friendly world, and everything in friendly world is friendly, and see how that goes, right? See if people respond to that, and then put out another adventure called, murder world. And instead of no, all the races aren't evil, everything is evil. Everything is evil. The halflings are evil. The gnomes are evil. Just everyone is terrible and horrible. You've got two things, and you can have two groups of people gravitate towards them. Because even if you want to tell stories with a political theme, right? There's more than one way to do that, right? Like you can have a story where everyone is friendly and everyone is happy and everyone is self-actualized and they all get along, or you can tell a story where everything is bleak and exaggerated and terrible, and you can tell stories in that way as well. So I really don't understand some of where they're layering politics over the game in a very strange way. And it's I don't know who that's appealing to. Like, I think if you want to play a fantasy adventure game, I want more bad things.
It's appealing to their own circle of people who all think it's great. Look, this is
to collect, but not to play.
This is not a new problem, because if you talk to some of the old guys at TSR that worked back there in the 80s, they didn't know what they were going to do half the time. Nobody said, we want these kind of adventures. We want jungle adventures. We want pulpy adventures, or this and that. I mean, where did Spelljammer come from? No, there was not a group. Look, I played since 1978. There was not a group of fans anywhere that I knew that said, what we really need is D&D in space. They would come up with these ideas without testing them. That's why some of these things flopped, even though they put lots of time and money into them. I mean, there must have been 30 Spelljammer modules and 2 or 3 box sets, but it was a tiny little niche audience, and a lot of their worlds were like that. because they didn't really ask people. And I think that's been a problem from the beginning, and I think it's only exasperated itself in the last few years. They're putting out stuff that they want to see, and that's a big problem with putting out only what you want to see. I always tell my wife she has a problem buying Christmas presents. Oh, I'm throwing her under the bus. If she's watching, she's gonna beat me up. But she buys the kids presents that she wishes she had, and I tell her no, buy them something that they want. And sometimes I do that too. Especially with my grandson. I mean, Eric knows how much Jake means to me, my oldest grandson, and I'll buy him something that my wife's like, he doesn't want that. You want him to have that. I'm like, you're right. You're absolutely right. He didn't ask for that. That's just something I want him to have. That seems like that is exactly what WotC is right now. They're not putting out stuff that they don't know what people want. They don't know what people want. They don't care what people want. They're putting out stuff that they want to see, that their circle of friends will give a back pat for and say that Radiant Citadel was so awesome. It had all these diverse options. It was great. It sucked. It didn't sell.
I'm sure some people liked it, but when they gave up having Dragon Magazine and Dungeon Magazine, that was a perfect way for them to test stuff out and see what they could have done, like one-off little adventures, like, hey, what do you think of this? And if they got tons of feedback, they could have taken that little adventure and then decided to make that into a full-length book.
But I'm talking just by sheer sales. Strixhaven didn't sell. The Spelljammer remake didn't sell. Radiant Citadel didn't sell. These are all, Eric and I have talked to the people that this is all. We know this because we've talked to people. They didn't sell. This is why they're in such a panic last year, because it wasn't their fault. It could be because they wrote terrible adventures. It must be something else. Oh, it's those terrible OSR people. They're taking all our business away because you're not putting out what people want to play and want to see. And then that's what there was not an uprising of people that wanted to see Harry Potter D&D. There was not a whole bunch of people that said, you know what, you don't really need a Spelljammer back for 5e. No, there wasn't a large group of people. Yes, maybe there was a niche audience, but it wasn't a large group of people. You have to find out what people want, and then you move from there. And they've just moving so, like I said, I think the last time they even cared about that was 2013, 2014, right in that range, maybe 2015. The last 5 to 8 years, they don't care what you want anymore. They're putting out what they want to see and what they think that you should want.
See,
they can't believe that.
I think their Strixhaven book could have been really popular. Like there's a new Harry Potter. I'm not much of a video gamer, and so I see the commercials before I watch YouTube like this. There's a new Harry Potter game that came out, and it's people are loving it, right? But I think with Strixhaven, it was too nice, right? Like I think if they did like a Strixhaven that was more like Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, like it was a little darker, it was a little bit more like higher on the mystery, higher on the danger, higher on that threat level. I think they could have done a bit better. It just
that's a great idea, Stuart, because I think they did too much. We're going to delve into the life of the D&D barista instead of saying, well, what kind of secrets does this school hold? Or what kind of evil? Maybe there's a really bad stuff going on, like you said. But I think once again they're putting out stuff that they want to see, and a lot of these people they're story gamer type people that don't really care about combat or evil or things or fighting bad stuff. That they think that everybody wants to have a game like them, which means y'all get around the table and you talk and you have 5 hours where you don't roll the dice because you're acting out, which is a perfectly valid way to play. I'm not saying if you want to play that way, that's great, but I don't think the vast majority of people like that style of gaming, and I don't think the vast majority of people want to play in a Magic school. I don't think the vast majority of people want to play Spelljammer. Look, I know there's Spelljammer lovers out there. If I'm making you mad, sorry. It's not a horrible game. My middle brother Robert is one of them. He loves Spelljammer. He used to build the giant Spelljammer ships so we could play on them and stuff. My brother Robert was the patron of game worlds that nobody liked because he also loved Al-Qadim too. He actually ran some really good Al-Qadim adventures, but it's just, once again, it's just so niche. Somebody wanted it and somebody thought it was a great idea, but it's not with the vast majority. And I know this has been years, but at Frog God, we've done surveys many times about what do you guys want to see? What is it you want to see? And almost unanimously, every single time we run one of these surveys, they want to see old style dungeon crawls. Now, that's also because Frog God Games has a reputation towards that. We put out Rapid Athic and stuff like that. So yes, our people that buy our product are going to be more geared towards that. But overwhelmingly, so we're just giving them what they want. They want to see dungeon crawls. And sometimes I can't remember. There was like 3 or 4 other things besides that they wanted to see, but mostly it was we want to see dungeon crawls.
So someone asked a question. I want to answer the question. I want to also talk about, Strixhaven and Spelljammer, right? So someone asked, what's my favorite monster? And my favorite monster book is the Fiend Folio. And when I was young, I thought these monsters are too silly. They're too weird. I don't like them. They're not as good as like orcs and trolls and ogres and straight ahead things. I love the challenge of taking the weirder monsters and making them cool in some way. So my favorite monster is the Flumph, because it's the one most people don't like the most. And I like the challenge of how can I take this and make this cool? So I wrote a whole adventure around the Flumph because I was like, okay, they're smart, they're lawful. Okay, they look like something out of like an old Choose Your Own Adventure, right? There's this weird jellyfish kind of thing. So I was like, they're the crew of a spaceship. Okay, and so we just took that and expanded on that. And so instead of them being like a goofy joke, you do something with it that is actually, that you're excited about and is actually kind of cool. And I feel like that's where Strixhaven really fell down. I mean, baristas are not cool. Right? That's a job you have to do until you get to do the job you want to do, right? If you're going to be a Strixhaven barista, that's like an NPC who's brewing up potions and is randomly poisoning people. And that's part of the adventure, right? Like being a barista is something you do in your regular life, especially as a young person. It's not Harry Potter. It's not, that extra stuff. So like the cool stuff from Harry Potter is you're out in the forest. The giant spiders are coming to get you. You're in the Chamber of Secrets. There's a basilisk. There's the different houses are fighting with each other. You go to Diagon Alley and there's like dark, sinister things going on there. And, there's the Dementors and things like that. That's all the cool stuff from Harry Potter that would do well in Dungeons and Dragons. And so I don't even know, because I didn't buy my son. I used to buy him like a D&D book each year. He is like, ugh, with all the new ones, because they put forward this very soft, friendly, like cuddly image. And
nobody's going to really be hurt. Well, it kind of goes hand in hand with 5e, where it's very hard to die or to kill characters. I mean, it's really hard. It's kind of that whole, we're going to be a little more storytelling. You don't want to really lose your character. You spend all this time rolling this guy up, and we don't want you to have to roll up a guy an hour later. So everything's going to be a little soft, like you said, a little softer, a little gentler. You're not going to be quite as much danger.
I think if they had taken that and they had really leaned into like it's a slightly darker, more gothic, all the darker elements of like the third Harry Potter movie, stuff like that, I think would have engaged with gamers. So I think one of the problems with the late era 5th edition is some of the art direction. Like what aesthetic are they trying to present with these games? So it's a little bit of the art direction and a little bit of what is the focus of these games? Like what is it about? And so I think you're a barista and you're hanging out with your friends and there's little antics going on. That is not like if one of the Harry Potter movies had been that, Harry Potter is now a barista in Hogsmeade. I don't think people would have wanted to go see that. I think they wanted to see that, that darker, more mysterious quality.
No, I very much, I agree totally. That sounds like the slow roll down the hill the last few years. And, as Eric said, it's probably started with orcs aren't really evil. And then it's just been steamrolling ever since to, nothing's really evil. I mean, demons and devils aren't really evil. I mean, come on. When you get to that point, you're saying that's not a fantasy world anymore. It's your idea of what you want to give to that's your own ideas.
Hellboy is cool because he's different than
he's different,
all the demons and devils, right?
Right.
Drizzt is interesting because he's not like all the other drow, right? But if you're saying, well, there's lots of drow who are like that, and there's lots of devils who are like Hellboy, then they stop becoming interesting characters.
Right.
So,
right. I mean, in the way I look at it, even quote intelligent monsters are kind of like animals in the world, right? You're going to get a lion in the wilderness is going to be a lion in the wilderness. It's not going to change its innate nature. Now, I still remember the video of the lion that was raised, I guess, on it was a man and his family because it was an abandoned cub, and they brought it back into the wild and like 5 years
Born
later,
free
yeah,
as the wind.
well, 5 years, like 5 years later, they tracked down this lion with the new pride, and the lion comes running up to him, and this is 5 years later, and still remembers him, and jumps on him and licks him. And the other lions look, because the pride is like, wow, this is fucking weird. Because it's like, all right, well, normally this would be food, and you're actually licking your food like it's one of us. And they left the guy alone. I guess obviously the cameraman alone. I'm assuming the cameraman was hidden in a truck or something like that. Yes, that's the exception. That's what you watch and you go, holy shit.
Yeah.
That's amazing. If it isn't amazing, then it loses its value. And I think that 5e, and the reason why it's 1D&D, by the way, is because they don't plan on putting out new versions of the game. They're going to do stealth updates because they're going to be aiming to make it a primarily digital process. So you're going to wake up and go to log in and go, hey, wait a second. What happened to my orcs?
Oh, no.
My orcs are gone. They're now there's a bork in there. I don't understand what just happened.
You're going to lose every argument because you're going to say, well, remember when D&D had this? No, it doesn't. Prove it. Well, I can't prove it because no, prove it. Prove that orcs used to be evil. Orcs were never evil. Never. Yes, they were. No, prove it. Well,
see, I think you can make those changes, right? And I think you can have that campaign where orcs now are misunderstood, and there's a book called The Last Ring Bearer. It's by I believe someone from Russia, and they wrote Lord of the Rings from the point of view of Mordor, right? And so the orcs are not monsters; they're just people who look different, right? And the elves are actually this alien weird race that's like manipulating all the humans from the West and everything. And you can write something like that, and it's cool. And even if you made an adventure like that or a source book like that, that is cool because it's different and it's a different view of the game. And I think that's awesome. But to say all orcs like across the border like this, it's like, it's like if there's only one genre of TV show, like all TV is now Jerry Springer. You're like,
right. I mean, well, that's a bit more extreme than I would like to know about. But seriously, it takes it. Conflict is what drives stories, right? It always has. And any good story has some kind of conflict built into it. Now, does evil perceive itself to be evil? Probably not. Evil probably perceives itself to be, I don't know, self-interested, or this is good what I'm doing, because it often can be a matter of perspective. And that's fine if you want to bring it into your gaming. And if they want to do a new setting, like you're saying, let's do a whole setting where we reverse the default, and all the evil races, as we say them right now, are now good, and these are the PC races, and all of the player character races are now evil. And halflings are cannibals, like they weren't the cannibals in Dark Sun. Dwarves do like evil satanic rituals, and elves do sacrifices. You could do that, and that would be a lot of fun. And that would show imagination. But Wizards of the Coast lacks the imagination. Mm-hmm. And part of the reason I think why they wanted to, and this is the one thing that I find hilarious, the 1.1, the 2.0, and the 1.2, and I know that's not in the right order, but it's the right order. They just had to put it out. All included the we have to protect you clause, right? Our game has to be inclusive, and they're not explaining what they mean by inclusive. What they're trying to say is our game has to protect you from bad things, and you can't be trusted to protect yourself as a community. You can't be trusted to say, hey, that's a piece of shit. That's Fatal 2.0. I'm not wasting my money on it, and you shouldn't either. They're like, oh, no. You can't play anything. And we're going to put restrictions on what you can publish using our rules. But we're not going to actually define those restrictions. The OGL isn't going to set out and say you can't do X, Y, Z. It's open to our interpretation, so we can take out the bad players that we perceive to be bad, but it's a matter of perspective, depending on who's in charge of the company at the time. And that's telling. That was every version of the OGL. They gave up the money. Yeah, we're not gonna tax you anymore. They gave up we're gonna review your work before you can even publish it part. But they still left in that one piece. I call it like the anti-Zach Smith piece. That was like, we need our trump card so we can pull the licenses.
See, when you watch movies, right? Look at the variety of movies that exist, right? You have whatever Disney movies coming out, Frozen 3, I think they're working on now. Like you have very family friendly stuff. You have Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You have The English Patient. You have The Avengers. There's this range of different kinds of movies for different kinds of people. And the idea that we all have to have one sort of type of Dungeons and Dragons experience I think that's very strange. And it's also weird that they're so focused on like this type of media has to fit in this very small box. And what are these examples of these terrible games that they're so worried about? And how do those compare to movies, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, what is that? Like, did RPG Pundit or Venger do something that they're so scared of? Those are so tame compared to movies. Like, no one is publishing these D&D supplements that are so extreme and terrible. Like
they could, and we have to protect you from the people that haven't shown up yet in 20 years. Venger doesn't even use the OGL with his work. He pointed it out to me. I was like, oh, well, there you go. So
but I don't understand. I don't understand. What? Glitch.
Oh, you look fine to me.
You're fine.
Well, yeah. So like I think that all these games. Because UFOs. The UFOs are back.
I'm about to say Canadian internet for the win. It's like, you might have healthcare, but we've got the internet. But it's you look at how all this shit played out. The last month has been more, I don't want to say interesting, more stress-inducing, more highs and lows than my prior dozen years since I came back to gaming have ever been. And I could never have imagined that one company could cause so much grief amongst my friends and that are publishers, big and small. But even small publishers, people have plans like, hey, I plan on quitting my full-time job and publishing full-time because I can prove I can do it. And all my work is based on the OGL. And then this piece of shit mother, and, I mean,
it wasn't that long ago. And here's the thing about WotC is they were riding a high for quite a while. I mean, 5e is the most popular version of the game ever published, best-selling version of the game ever published. You go to conventions. I mean, North Texas is primarily an old-school convention. Probably half the D&D games are run are 5e because people just love 5e. They love playing it. It's not hard to learn. I mean, there's so many things going for it. And look, WotC was riding an almost unprecedented, wave of goodwill. I mean, yes, they had their people would get mad when they had, D&D characters in wheelchairs or orcs are good. I mean, whatever's just different. That divides the community. D&D's, orcs aren't evil or whatever, and people would grumble about it. But for the most part, anything they did was pretty much reached with, people reacted with, hey, this is great stuff. And it wasn't until the last couple of years, and I mean, pure speculation about why this happened, but the last couple of years, it started to be more than just an irritation, and it culminates with what happened in January, which is, basically, hey, we don't really care about our fans anymore. We're just going to move forward, and you can either move forward with us or you can just get the hell out of here. And I don't know if you could draw a direct line between 2 years ago and this year. It seems more like a broken line because they still maintained a ton of goodwill, even going into, Christmas and almost into January. Yes, they were having financial issues and their books did not sell very good last year, but they always, okay, so that you have the new version coming up. Your books didn't sell that great. That's okay. Don't worry about it because in 2 years you're going to have 50th anniversary. What do we know what changed, or what really changed to make that unprecedented goodwill just turn into we don't trust you guys? I mean, it couldn't have been just the last 3 or 4 weeks. I mean, it has to be deeper than that.
I think, and again, no inside information on this one, but Ray Wininger leaving in November, he'd been in that position for a couple of years, for him to step away right before the OG, like a month, 5 weeks before the OGL leak happened, is telling, because it means that he did not agree with the path that was going on, and whether he was told to resign or whether he said, I'm walking out, is irrelevant, because then we get Kyle Brink, who's been with the company for 2 years. And I made the joke last week that, hey, I was 25 when I got this job, and it's 2 years later, and now I'm 57. Because the stress that he's been under over the last couple of weeks, he's trying to throw on his predecessor. But the reality is, it's him, because you're telling us that you left people out of the loop on everything that was going on because you didn't want to stress them. Well, come on. That's the worst answer I've ever. There is no manager in history who hasn't been okay with giving stress to their underlings. Believe me, I was a sergeant for, 14 years. I gave a lot of stress. I was like, I can't tell these guys. You know what? I'll leave them out of the loop as to why we're doing this. They don't need to know going into this that we're going into a building with possible poisonous fumes. I don't want them stressing that one out. We'll just go on ahead, guys. Just plow on through. I'll worry for you because that's the kind of guy I am.
So just jumping ahead, this is once again pure speculation. If one deity comes out and they demand you use tools like the X card, is that the end? Is it over? You might as well just wash your hands and walk away? Because I can see doing it on a voluntarily basis. Say, look, this is a tool you could use, but stuff like that's probably annoys me almost more than anything. Now, like I said, it's your game. However you want to play your game is fine. But now you have whole conventions where, like, look, the X card is mandatory at our convention.
Well,
you have to.
Mike, you're making me think. Mike, you're making me think here, and that can be dangerous.
I mean, do you think that's something that someplace they would go? Because that sounds like
I'm going to say
logical way to go down the path.
We thought that the open game license was going to be how they were going to put restrictions on people and players and all that stuff, or who could be part of the community. And then they backed off on that and they said, "Here, Creative Commons, it's all yours," because I think they're abandoning the physical tabletop field, or the virtual tabletop field that plays like a real tabletop. They're going to have their D&D Beyond VTT, and the D&D Beyond VTT is going to have its own subset of rules. And I'm not talking about game rules. I'm talking about social rules. Again, no inside information, but the conversation that we're having, I was trying to figure out what their angle was. And I think that they are deferring this whole, we want to be a more inclusive, more caring, more benevolent overseer, and they're pushing that over to the VTT because that's where they're going to monetize and subscribe and ding you for, your character got a flame tongue in your last adventure. If you want to show that on your 3D model, it's only $1.59. You can rent it for 99 cents a month or pay $3 to get it for the next year or some shit like that.
That's it.
And I think that that's where they're going to put the restrictions on. So your DM misgendered you. Well, report them via the built-in report button on the VTT. You feel that as a member of the BIPOC community, you were not treated with the proper amount of respect, even though your DM didn't know who you were because you were playing with an avatar on your video screen, and for as far as they knew, you were a green alien. Make that report, and that, I believe, is where that's going to come into play. All they did was take what they were going to put under the OGL, and they realized, well, we don't need it under the OGL because we're not concentrating on at-home play. We are concentrating on people playing on our VTT because we're responsible for that. If somebody has a bad experience on our VTT using our D&D Beyond, we could get bad publicity for that. So we have to put into place mechanics, procedures that will weed out the bad individuals. So I
think you're right, Eric. I think that's exactly what they're going to do. I'm skeptical how many. I think the reason people play Dungeons and Dragons and all the other tabletop games is because it isn't a video game. Right. And so the more they layer this stuff on, the more I think they're going to be in competition with World of Warcraft or whatever, the current set of popular MMOs is. So I don't know. I think, Mike, you had said, are they going to add that to the rule? I think they probably will. I think you'll probably see that in the rule book. But think about how much stuff was in the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons Dungeon Master's Guide that people were like, I'm just not going to use that. I'm just going to pick and choose the stuff I want and add that to the
versus
basic
AC
rules.
Adjustments. What the hell?
Yeah, I'm not using that.
Doesn't work.
Yeah. So people who like that stuff will add it. And then a lot of people will be like, just tell me if I'm doing something wrong. I'll change it.
I'll try to correct myself for next time.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I can see it built into their interface because that is where their control comes into play. And there's this desire. I don't really shouldn't want to say it to be a Care Bear environment or vanilla environment or whatever, but there's this desire for them to be the arbiters of what is right and wrong, not when it comes to the rules of the game, but to how and when and with who you play it and how you address others. This is all, I think, going to come out in the VTT. Now, what's interesting is that, oh God, what? Now I got to go to the videotape. I did video earlier. Demiplane, because there's another service like that that's similar. Demiplane is created by the D&D Beyond guys. When they got bought out, they said, "We'll take our money and we'll just make a clone of D&D Beyond," which is kind of what they're doing. And they've been doing it with Pathfinder 2, where you can integrate the rules digitally and character sheets. They just announced that they're going to do it for 5e now, because 5e is Creative Commons. They're not going to get their feet pulled out from under them. So they're going to be offering an alternate way to play and if they're doing 5e, and Kyle has promised us that all the changes in 1D&D are going to be put under the Creative Commons, under the SRD, because I believe Kyle, because Kyle would never lie to me. Wizards of the Coast would never lie to me and tell me how beautifully wonderful I am at the same time, hit me over the head with a fucking brick. They would never do that. But Kyle is saying that as 1D&D evolves, the SRD will evolve, and it will be under the Creative Commons. Well, if that's the case, then they are going to be allowing a service like Demiplane to do what they're doing, but possibly better. So what's the difference? The integrated VTT. And that is where they are hanging their hat on. And that VTT, remember the curse of the Woods of the Coast VTT, 4E, 2 game design, 2 programmers dead, murder-suicide, and we never saw it. Gleemax was gleefully aborted, but they're putting all their pennies into this one thing. The VTT is going to make or break them, and so, it's the monetization.
Wizards of the Coast is at the top of the industry when it comes to tabletop games, right? They've got the most known license for a tabletop role-playing game. They've got lots of customer base and goodwill, and they are not at the top of the game when it comes to designing video games. No. And the closer they get with this, they're brushing up against, BioWare and people like that. And, there'll be a point where people are like, I could do this, or I could go and play a multiplayer game. I could play Grand Theft Auto or something like that. So I don't know. This is it's
if you're doing this, Stuart. I mean, isn't this where you say, look, we don't really know what we're doing. We're going to hire the best people possible to do this. And that seems to be a logical, when you're delving into territory you don't know, you hire, look,
why don't they hire BioWare? They hate BioWare. There you go.
If I get accused of murdering Eric at a convention, I'm not going to go, get Joe Schmo down the street. I'm going to get the best lawyer I can possibly afford because I don't feel like defending myself in that case, or, having regular nobody attorney. And the same thing with this. I mean, not that I'm going to kill Eric anytime soon, but
thank you.
I'm looking ahead. But no, you find you get BioWare, you get Blizzard, you get whoever, you get not EA. EA's terrible, but you get another company that puts out good stuff, and you say, look, this it takes years. These programs, they take years. I mean, look how long it's taken. Bethesda to develop Skyrim too. Geez, I mean, good Lord, it's been 10 years. And so that's what gets me, is that this has a potential. If this is going to make and break your company, which, as Eric said, I absolutely believe that's true. I mean, if the VTT is a failure, this is going to be massive heads will roll. Let's put it that way. Yeah. This is not going to be good.
Yeah, because you can't afford to have it not come out.
No,
that's where they're banking their money on it. They banked their money on 4E on it. 4E was going to have microtransactions, is what I understood.
Yep.
And for their virtual tabletop, I need 7 orcs. Oh, they're 10 cents a piece, but you can buy 12 for $1. Oh, wow. Virtual minis paying by the piece. That always makes sense.
The scope creep on this so I've done video game development. I do IT projects and stuff, and the potential for scope creep on this is just so crazy. I can just see this expanding as they're talking about, and then you can add the flame tongue. Someone's got to 3D sculpt that flame tongue, and they've got to code all of this stuff. It's just so massive. And so if you think about something like Roll20, which people are already using, they're already enjoying it, right? The level of complexity that this is beyond that is just massive. It's so much money they're going to have to invest in this before they even find out if people are into it. So it's a huge risk. I don't know.
Yeah, they hired 350 programmers. Okay. Now,
why can't they hire 350 RPG writers and put out some good books?
But now listen, if they hired under the Kyle Brinks method of hiring, it doesn't mean that you're getting the best programmers. You're getting people that check off boxes. Now, we don't know. Maybe they did go and raid all the major game publishers for video games and computer games, and were able to raid 350 program designers that are quality. Or they just went to 350 people who could, hey, we got a 5-minute online test to see what your coding ability is. Can you draw a box in BASIC?
Game developers, like video game developers, typically are going to be more expensive than RPG writers. So that's an expensive 350 people they're hiring, and they're going to have PMs and a lot of support staff around that as well. And again, I'm coming back to where are the adventures? Can't you? I don't know. To me, it seems excessive.
That was what's so crazy about cutting out the OGL, because for the last 7-8 years, the best source of material for the 5e game has been third-party publishers like Frog God and Cobalt Press.
Yep.
That's something they didn't have to deal with. They didn't have to work on it. They didn't have to create these adventures like Rapid Athic or Kingdom of the Ghouls like Wolfgang did. They just had to have the system, and it was just mind-boggling to me. They wanted to cut that out because they thought they could do it better. They can't do it better. Their stuff, it's not as good. It just plain fact, it's not as good. They don't even put out floppy modules anymore. They put out hardbacks.
They should have reached out. They should have reached out to Frog God Games and Kobold Press and said, "Listen, you guys do good stuff. We want to put our wrapper around it, but we want you guys to do this stuff for us." right? Like you were saying
Right.
with the lawyer, right? Why I don't understand why they're not putting out more gaming material to keep people excited about it, and instead they're putting so much money, like so much money into this virtual tabletop thing that is a big question mark. So it's a huge risk for them. I hope it works for them.
Well, I mean,
but
first
it's a
things
big risk.
So first things first. So let's follow the timeline here. D&D movie comes out in a month, right? Into March. That's got to be a hit. If that's a flop, that's not good. Not good at all, because they are banking a lot on regular human being one, regular human being two, going in, seeing the movie, wanting to play D&D. So that's number one. Number two, they have a television show that works. Now, I don't know if is this supposed to come out this year, Eric, or next year?
I think it's next year. I think it's
Next year.
2024.
They're filming this year.
Via Paramount, right?
Okay, so we'll leave that on the back burner for right now. So number one, movie has to be a hit. Number two, they have to start building the buzz about the 50th anniversary. They did something right, because I told Eric the number one thing they did not want to see was stories about turmoil in D&D all during their 50th anniversary. They didn't want to see all these turmoil stories. They've tamped that down, so you shouldn't see all the turmoil stories. But the launch has got to be pitch perfect, man.
Yep.
I mean, they can't fuck this launch up at all. Their margin is like this now because they fucked up the last month. So they've made it so they have to have a perfect. And look, we all know when games come out, the thing about games now, if you play, I just started playing Xbox like 10 years ago. I wasn't ever a big player when I was younger, but nowadays they basically release the beta and tell you it's finished. It's not finished, because then there's 16 updates afterwards where they fix all the crap that's wrong. Can they afford to do that? Can they afford to have 25 fuck ups and then 25 updates? Or are people just going to start getting pissed at the?
I think that you need something that out of the gate is usable. Doesn't have to be perfect, but it won't be perfect. See, I suspect what you get in your first edition of the VTT when it does come out is you're going to get something that's going to come and it's going to ship with Billy Bob's generic adventure. Boom! There you go. And
love Billy Bob stuff. Yeah,
and Billy Bob, because they can't afford real programmers. But they're gonna have Billy Bob's generic adventure with a bunch of pieces you can move around to make, like, I don't know, 3 or 4 other dungeons, and that's all you're gonna have 4 months until they start putting out actual releases. That Strixhaven 2.0, and including your VTT, because that's a lot of material you're going to have to produce constantly with this VTT, and that's why it's going to be a subscription. And by the way, as Stuart pointed out, programmers aren't cheap, but you know who was cheap? Those Brazilian employees, because they were not making American salaries. So how much did you actually save?
Well, let's talk about that just a second, because we've just referred to it. We haven't actually told the story. So Eric, tell the story about what happened here. Why we keep
all right. So apparently yesterday it came out, was shared on Twitter by, I guess, the lead community manager for Wizards of the Coast Brazilian, I don't know, entity, sub company. However they were doing it, they had community manager, community people, because 11 months ago, last March, Wizards of the Coast had started taking back all their licenses from third-party publishers that were doing translations of D&D, because some of the translations were subpar. So they took them all back and in-house. And one thing we've learned about Wizards of the Coast, they're going to do quality work. So, assuming they were doing quality work, Brazilian Portuguese was not on that initial round of German, French, Spanish, and Italian. So Portuguese got released last year, and it was a big announcement on D&D Beyond, and they were going to be putting out books that were being translated. And then they announced yesterday, well, they didn't announce, just the person that was formerly their community manager announced that her and her staff were all let go. So, again, salaries in Brazil are certainly not what the salaries are going to be in Canada or the U.S. So me, and maybe a lot of this was part-time positions, I do not know. But I will guarantee you that they didn't save much more than a one or two programmers worth of salaries and benefits by letting these people go. But the PR hit was huge, because it even got picked up by the pundit. Even the pundit did a video on this, because, as he rightfully pointed out, if you are trying to expand D&D to other parts of the world, to other cultures, you need to support that.
Mm-hmm.
And how much was it costing you to support that? Now, maybe the bean counters are like, oh, it's not worth it supporting in Brazil. Brazil is one of the biggest.
It's a huge market. Let me tell you, there's a Brazilian Portuguese version of DCC. There is. I just auctioned a Tales of the Loop book that was Portuguese language. They do a lot of. There's a lot of people in Brazil, and they do a lot of gaming in Brazil, and they have a lot of other systems they translate. Brazil is a huge market. It is a huge market.
Yeah. The only problem with Brazil is that things that you ship tend to go get misplaced.
Oh yeah, 50% of the time, yeah, you'll never.
So I could see an issue where maybe now Wizards of the Coast is trying to do everything. They want you to buy their bundles, right? They don't want to deal with third parties. By the way, I'm going to have to do a video on this. I was graced by somebody who I will not name, but somebody who happens to be in the retail side of the business, which gave me a screenshot of the actual prices for stuff for retailers from Wizards of the Coast. So now, if you're getting stuff from a distributor at 50 cents on the dollar, so approximately, so if a $50 book is costing you, actually, I think it's costing $29.99. So and that's not including shipping to get it to you. So you better order a lot, so your shipping cost is lower per item. But that means if the distributor is selling for $29.99, they're getting it for what? 15, 16. So that means Wizards of the Coast, their margins on what they print and sell to the distributor is small to nothing. However, when they sell you that bundle that adds in the D&D Beyond, you get it 2 weeks earlier, and they sell it to you for $10 over retail for that bundle, print retail. Not counting the D&D Beyond retail. I always believe you should get digital for free if you're buying print. But now they're getting $60. The digital's not costing them anything extra once it's done. It's not a per item cost on that. And they're getting $60 now for a book that they were getting $15 from before. They can afford to ship it for free throughout the US, Canada, New Zealand, Hong Kong, Australia, and maybe they'll be adding other countries later. So this is certainly a way for Wizards of the Coast to maximize their profits. Now, the problem is they've never liked digital until they found D&D Beyond. Now they found D&D Beyond. They love digital because they can control it. And you can't, mass produce it. And you can't, put it up on a PDF site. Some of the ones that are gone now. But the reality is, in countries like Brazil, physical books maybe there's no margin on it because of how much gets lost in the mail by a corrupt mail service. So maybe that's why they're saying, screw you. But the public will that you're losing by doing that costs you a lot more than what little you're saving. And Elle also pointed out in the chat that Hasbro and Wizards spent $7, and I guess whoever, Paramount or wherever's produced a D&D movie, spent $7 million on a 30-second slot to showcase the movie. Now, not just how many programmers would that pay for, how many Brazilian, Latin American support staff in the community would that have paid for?
Well, think about this, Eric. If you want your movie to be successful, right? Don't you want that huge market in Brazil to also want to go and watch your Dungeons and Dragons movie? And why would you not want to have people helping spread the word about how fun D&D is to Brazil if you want them to go see your movie? And that's true for all the other countries too. It's short-sighted.
I know earlier today you were in a discussion online because I was backing you up, Stuart, about this is a terrible look. And somebody said, oh, well, Kyle was only talking about his department. He had 7 people working there. This has nothing to do with that. But it's just like everything they do in the last year. It just looks bad. But yes, okay. It's like everything. That's their problem is they can't have goodwill for 2 weeks running without pissing off Weiss and Hickman or just doing something in general that just doesn't need to happen. It's like there's nobody there saying, can we push this back until after the movie? Maybe this end of summer. I mean,
I also think that instead of telling people this is what I think and I feel, show people, right? Like if you want people to see like, no, we're really committed. We really want to have all sorts of different backgrounds and voices and things like that, right? Don't be firing your entire Latino community managers, right?
No.
Like that's ridiculous, right? And I don't know. I don't, and I'm sure that has nothing to do. I'm sure Kyle is pissed off that happened because I'm sure that's not his, his decision. He didn't.
But once again, but that's the whole company, the right hand not doing the left hand.
That's exactly it. So yeah. I think that must be a very frustrating environment to have to work within, where like, because I believe he probably means what he's saying. He probably does mean I would like to see more diversity because he personally believes that. Like I don't have a reason to think he's lying, but then to find out that meanwhile the company's undermining that message by saying we don't really care about South America.
But Eric and I have been seeing this going on for the last 2 years now, right? I mean, like I said, I totally almost forgotten about the Weiss and Hickman thing. Why piss off the two creators of Dragonlance the way they did? I mean, yes, there's probably some ulterior motive to we're going to cancel the contract and give your books back because we don't like the way they're written, and then everything smiles 2 months later. I mean, I don't know what happened behind the scenes, but just the look of it was terrible. I mean, because Weiss and Hickman are beloved in the community. I mean, everybody loves them. They're great people, blah, blah, blah. And just to have to go through that, what? There's nobody that could have stepped in and said, what is the problem here? Okay, so we don't like what we're writing. Can we buy them out? I mean, what can we do here to make this not become a legal issue or a big issue? It's like nobody is doing that in the company. Nobody is stepping forward and working out these problems. I mean, hell, maybe they are. Maybe they're working out more problems than we see, and we're only seeing the tip of the iceberg, and it could be a million times worse if person X wasn't there working out problems. I mean, I find that hard to believe, but
I think they're never looking at the cost of the PR hit they're taking for this stuff, right? So someone, I'm sure the original book that Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman wrote was awesome. I'm sure it was because they wrote the other books and they were awesome. So I'm sure that this new one was awesome, but they decided, nah, we're going to start poking them and we're going to make this big problem. So then they take the cost on the legal hit because they had to settle and it was a mess. And then they also take the PR hit. And so again, someone said they spent $7 million on a Super Bowl ad, right? So you're spending money out for PR, but then they're just wasting PR all over the place. That it was almost it's just pointless to waste that.
I mean, it shows. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Stuart. I want to make a point. But go ahead.
No. I was just going to say. So back to the folks down in Brazil, the amount that probably would have cost them is so small to have that huge audience who would love, like, so even if they're not buying all the hardbacks, right? They talked about D&D being a 4-sector brand. I think they were talking about. So they're not just selling books, right? They want to sell books, TV shows and movies. They want to sell consumer goods, and the digital subscriptions and stuff. So let's say the books hard to get to Brazil because of shipping, and they've got issues with that. They've got the digital, they've got the movies, they've got the TV show, and they've got other consumer products that they could be selling there. And I don't know. We're playing, our armchair managers. We don't work there, so we don't know what the reality is. But it's a strange decision to me. I think that probably was a good investment to have that market down there that they could sell those things to.
Brazil had that I don't know what was it, Kia? A year or two ago.
Yeah, really good.
They had a
awesome
car commercial with all the characters from the D&D cartoon.
Why don't they hire them to do the next movie?
Oh my God, that looked better. Yeah, that was great. That was a great commercial, by the way.
So I mean, for that to be mainstream cultural hit, it tells you that D&D has a presence in the culture.
Yes.
And again, even if you're not making much of a profit, maybe even if you're losing a little money on it, in the end, it's worth it for the investment you're getting back in other aspects of the four-pronged marketing bullshit that Wizards of the Coast thinks that they're going to make into $1 billion property, and everybody's going to have D&D on their lips.
Well, I was going to say that isn't this another isn't this another thing about how much this movie means to them? This has to work, man. I mean, for them to drop $7 million on a preview, that's something that only big time. I mean, look at the other previews you had during the Super Bowl. This is something big time movies do because they want to get that little extra oomph in there. For D&D to do this, which is kind of a niche, normally would be a pretty niche type movie. That tells me this really matters to them. I mean, they're not screwing around on this.
Mm-hmm.
This movie has to be a huge success. And I kind of knew that when they were hiring Michelle Rodriguez and Chris Pine, like these aren't B, C, D-list actors, Hugh Grant. I mean, these are guys you've heard of. And so you're thinking, okay, this is a step up from, Thor Birch and whoever else was starting that abomination in the 90s.
Jeremy Irons was no slouch. They had some excellent people in that.
He chewed the scenes like it was an all night buffet after the sumo match.
Wow. I don't dislike that movie as much as a lot of other people. I think that it had its rough edges, and I think it was a misunderstood movie, but I still think it was a lot of fun.
Stuart, we're going to have to put you on timeout, perhaps.
Oh,
I remember that. I remember I was going to go see with one of my best friends who I still game with, and I couldn't go. So he brought our daughters. And when he brought them back, dropped her off, I said, "How was the movie?" He was like, just not about I was like, "Oh, so I really shouldn't go." He goes, "Don't go see it. Don't do it. Don't do it." I'm like, "Oh, okay." I thought it looked a little cheesy, but yeah.
It was certainly cheesy. It was certainly that, but sometimes that can be fun.
Well, yeah,
by the way, I may have put the link for the Renault car.
Oh, the Renault, yeah, it was Renault.
I'm not sure if if I play it to check it out, it's going to come through my speaker.
Oh, don't demonetize yourself again! Come on, you just remonetize yourself.
Yeah, because remember the secret. If we're ever going to cover movie trailers again on this channel, I got to do what the smart people on YouTube do: is turn the fucking sound off.
Yes,
because video doesn't matter.
Clips. Yeah,
apparently I can show anything from on video, but the moment they get a sound clip that sounds like it's coming from I don't know, Amazon's Rings of Power, which we trashed when we did that one. So I guess they weren't too happy anyway.
But you also did illegal things there, so
it wasn't illegal. It just wasn't perfectly
not perfectly legal. Yeah. Not illegal, but just not perfectly
proper. It wasn't. It was a violation of YouTube's terms of service, I guess.
I tried to do a Facebook. The first time I ever tried to do Facebook Live, I did it, and then I entered it and put it up, and then I went back to it. It said, "We've turned off the audio for this because you used music that was not." I'm like, I didn't put any music at all in there, and then I remembered in the other room in the warehouse. I had Alexa on playing Judas Priest or something, and then that little bit must have come in just enough where you could barely hear it, and that my whole video was like no sound. Like, okay, well, I think I learned something here: is turn off everything everywhere. Don't let anything play. So,
wow, Stuart, we've kept you on for almost 2 hours.
Oh,
it was a pleasure. Nice chatting with you guys.
Yeah, I mean, great insights, and it's always great to have somebody on there that's been around as long as Eric and I have.
Yeah, I'm just kidding. I got much more gray over the last 12 years. This used to be like brown or something like that.
Yeah, it happens. I don't know why, but it seems to happen.
That's what my father, God bless him, he's always like, "Oh, at some point your hair's going to start falling out." I'm like, "Pop, I remember you at 55. You didn't have this much. He doesn't have a single gray hair. I don't understand that. The guy is like 79, not a single gray.
Really?
Hair. Yeah, he still has some hair left. It's a bit of a comb over, but it's not a single gray.
Good for him.
Yeah, I got the grace from my mother.
I got some gray hair. Let me show you.
No, we've seen your beard. We've seen your beard.
Right. Oh, yeah, that's my beard too. But I was going to. My chest is really. Yeah, okay. Well.
Yeah, it's okay. We don't. I take your word
for it. Look at that pepper. Look at that salt and pepper there.
It makes you like. I got this.
The ladies love it, so
folks, the link for the Kickstarter is right below Stuart. But you can do it. Just do a search if you go to Kickstarter for Advanced Ancient Academy. I will also put a link for this as a pinned comment after this video, after this live stream. So if you come and you're watching this as a replay, the comment.
Real quick, can we talk about just one thing about the Kickstarter? I backed it. It looks great. Do you have any position, or do you really know much about the OSE kerfuffle going on now, or is this something you want to talk about, or don't want to talk about, or do you even know what I'm talking about when I say this?
I don't. Is this that
Okay.
they're talking about Dolmenwood not using OSE because of the OGL?
They're going to publish it under Creative Commons instead, and I think they're going to, from what I understand, they're going to move most of their OSE stuff to Creative Commons just in case, because you can't trust
Right.
WotC anymore at
Which-
all. I understand that,
which,
and there's a lot of pushback from fans because they're like, "Hey, we want to play OSE because OSE is VX, and once you start changing everything up, then you're going to have two versions of the game. You're going to have original OSE, and then you're going to have OSE 2.0." So it's just I take it this is being published under original OSE, not OSE yet to come, or
here's a fun thing.
Yeah.
I haven't published any of my games under either Creative Commons or OGL, and I'm not going to with this either.
Hey, that's good. No, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. So under normal copyright, you can make a statement like "for use with Dungeons and Dragons," for use with Old School Essentials and Dungeons and Dragons.
Right.
That's a normal thing you can do under copyright.
Mm-hmm.
And so because I'm not trying to publish an entire game system that I need to borrow huge amounts from a system reference document or anything like that, I'm just making a zine, and I'm going to use normal, boring copyright and just say that it is for use with OSE and
good for you.
First edition D&D.
I think that's honestly, unless you're a big company, because I know big companies have to cover their ass and they don't want to pay legal bills. I think that's the way to go for most small publishers. I really do. I think that's the best way to go. Is just say, look, we're not violating anybody's copyright. We're doing this, and we don't need all that legalese in our. I mean, how often is Wizard in the last 20 years hasn't gone after any small publishers for anything? So I mean,
there's a couple of really good articles that came out during the OGL issues over the last 6 weeks or so, written by lawyers who explain where you need to use or what the OGL gave you and how much of that you actually already had under existing copyright rules. So for people who are just writing adventures or new characters, or it's new material as a supplement to an existing game, I'm not your lawyer, but I have talked to lawyers about this, and you don't have to enter into a contract like the OGL or give all of your stuff away through Creative Commons if you don't want to. You can just publish like anyone would normally publish and say, this is a thing you can use with that other game.
Fair enough. Yeah, I guess earlier this evening, somebody actually sent me the update that was going on about the Old School Essentials and Dolmenwood, and I looked at it, and it looks to me like they're not rewriting OSE. They're going to leave it in print for now, and I think, from what I can gather, they are waiting for the older SRDs, like 3.5, to be released under Creative Commons, at which point they don't have to change anything. Just change the license from the OGL to the Creative Commons.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like Dolmenwood is going to be essentially OSE with certain small pieces that would fall under the 5.1 SRD because they can't refer to the 3.5. They might have to be small changes, but I think the goal there is also to publish under the Creative Commons, which would mean to me is that Gavin is thinking like I am, that Wizards of the Coast at some point plans to revoke the OGL and say, you don't need it. Because even Kyle said it.
Yeah.
I don't understand why anybody would use the OGL at this point when you have the Creative Commons. It's there for your convenience, but I don't know why anybody would actually need it. Well,
unless you're selling 30 years or 20 years of back material that you don't want to have to redo 200 PDFs like Frog Games or Cobalt or Green Ronin or Paizo, those companies that are trying to sell back material. Yeah.
Which, again, once they put the older SRDs like D20 Modern and 3.5, when they release them under the Creative Commons, then it just becomes, all right, so if I need to, I just have to swap out the OGL for the Creative Commons, and it isn't like I have to do a whole new layout and change any aspects of it. Hopefully.
Yeah, there are some differences. Before you jump in with both feet into Creative Commons, there are some differences between the OGL and Creative Commons. I really like Creative Commons, but OGL had a way for you to carve out, that product identity, and you would say, you can use this, but maybe not my, special character who I've named here, and maybe these other special things. Under Creative Commons, they don't have that carve out clause, so they're not, and that's what Wizards of the Coast, I think, learned the hard way when they released Strahd the Vampire Lord under Creative Commons. I don't believe that was something they ever intended to do.
Oh, that was the get this shit done, get it done now.
Yeah, someone at Hasbro came in and busted some heads. I think someone at Hasbro was annoyed because they ended their survey. It was supposed to run for, I think, another week or two. And they were like, okay, the survey's over, and we're very, very sorry for what we've done. So I think someone was...
well, you don't usually see 88 to 90% against your idea. I mean, 55, 60, right there range, but it was so overwhelmingly negative to what they were doing. They just like, why are we wasting money doing this survey?
And that comes back to that PR thing. If we're spending money on PR, right? Don't go the other direction for no good reason. Like don't burn that goodwill and PR for no good reason. They didn't benefit from it. No.
Well, I think this is part of the issue of them no longer doing things like Gen Con and Origins or other conventions. They're no longer interacting with the gaming community. Interacting online on Twitter is not interacting with the gaming community. You don't get the real feel until you actually sit down with people and talk with them over a cup of coffee or sitting down at a game table, whatever. They don't have that feel for what real gamers are. They just hear the loud voices on social media, and they think the loud voices on social media speak for everyone. And you would think that over the last dozen years or so, companies would realize that loud voices on social media are exactly that. Loud voices on social media. Get to, doing surveys. People who interact with surveys are interacting with surveys because that's something that they like to do. It doesn't give you're not getting a real necessary feel for everybody's opinion. You will, though, when you start interacting with people in different ways, not just the one way that you're used to. That's my humble opinion. I could be wrong. I don't know where the new Kyle interviews are, and I'm sure the older ones will go down the memory hole soon enough. But I don't know. Again, Black Halfling's interview very good. The answers often sucked. The second guy, I don't know. The guy
who World guy was he was
the one who gave Wizards of the Coast all the questions ahead of time. For Kyle to basically have crib notes. The answers were better only because they were pre-scripted answers. They didn't make them good answers, just that he was able to say more because he knew what was coming. And Ginny, like her or love her, she was an effective,
very good interview because
and said I wasn't going to give them questions up front. That means they answered questions up front.
She absolutely had it all on her terms, and every question she asked and the answer, and then she went back to flashback or whatever. So okay, here's what happened in that question. Blah, blah, blah. I thought that was a very effective interview style because she delved into every single question he asked, and she did a good job. But like I said, but I don't think anybody but Jenny D could get that interview because she has a large enough audience that she was able to demand, you can't use this for any of your promotional material. You can't tell me what questions to ask, blah, blah. I mean, she was able to pretty much get whatever she wanted. If Kyle comes on here, they're going to say, no. You and Eric, you have 3,000 subscribers. You can't ask this. It's going to be this. And you can't, that's the problem with your regular person is they're going to be able to dictate terms.
I think that what happened is with the three Black Halflings, they allowed them to make questions ahead of time. And then after the interview, Kyle was like, oh, my God, I just had my ass handed to me. That was uncomfortable.
Ouch, yeah.
I need the questions next because I didn't – listen, did I expect an obscure YouTube channel to do such a great job asking those questions? No. and I really didn't have high hopes, and they did a very, very good job, and they did great follow-ups. You don't need Kyle. You don't need the OGL. Whenever I think of Kyle, I think of South Park. What can I say? Well, this is like getting a family reunion, like with the goodbyes and my families. Take like half an hour to be like, goodbye. Everybody's standing in the front door as the animals go running outside and everybody's getting chasing them down. Huge thank you to Stuart for an excellent show.
Yes. We won't wait 2.5 years to have you on again.
Yeah,
okay, this was fun. Anytime.
We joke with a lot of our guests because a lot of them, we have people come in like they're like nervous. Then afterwards, like, wow, I felt like I was at my neighborhood bar. It's like, well, then we did the right thing. It should be relaxing. So I hope it was.
Yes, this was good.
Folks that are in the live stream, there's 38 right now. Oh, jeez. We should have killed a few of you off. Not literally. Not literally. It didn't really mean it like Kyle meant the OGL. Thank you for participating, asking your questions. We didn't get to all your questions, but I during these things I have to turn into like the comment person, and Mike winds up being the actual questioner because you guys talk a lot. And it's awesome.
It's great. We love engagement. We love subscriptions. Yes. Please subscribe. Please engage.
The bundle link on the bottom of the screen, Tenkar-Tavern.
Hit that. Hit the thumbs up because hit the thumbs down. Any engagement's good, right? That's what they say. Thumbs up, thumbs down.
I like the thumbs up. I like
the thumbs up. Yeah.
I like the thumbs up personally. If I want thumbs down, trust me, I have my 2 or 3 guarantees.
There's suspicion.
No suspicions necessary. I could say who they are, but since there might be a legal action against me already, what? Other than that, folks, thank you.
Friday, what do we got coming this week? Friday night.
Friday is Glenn and I. So
Glenn, all right.
Right? Yeah,
I'll tune in. Yeah.
And then Saturday, Rach and I for Gamers Health. So, folks, be safe, be well. God bless. Roll those dice, roll them well. If you're on the Discord, the Tenkar's Tavern Discord, we do a hangout every Thursday night from 9 p.m. until about 11 Eastern, sometimes longer. I bow out at 11 because, I got to, deal with wife aggro and not Mike's. But we just chew the shit and talk about geek stuff. It's very relaxing. So if you're on the server, join us. All right, folks. On that note, we're out of here.
Later.